Admiral Han Wu stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride and watched the stars through the main screen. The ship moved slowly through space near the edge of known territory. Around him, other ships from the human defense fleet followed in formation. They were doing practice exercises like they did every month. Han Wu had been doing this for 20 years now, and he still loved the sight of human ships working together. Lieutenant Commander Kim Ara sat at her station checking radio signals from across the galaxy. Most of the time she heard normal space, traffic, cargo ships talking to stations, patrol boats giving reports. Today felt different though. She kept hearing strange sounds on the emergency frequencies. Kim Ara adjusted her equipment and listened more carefully. "Admiral," Kim Ara called out, "I'm getting something weird on the emergency band." Han Wu walked over to her station. "What kind of weird?" "It sounds like a distress call, but it's very weak and broken up. The signal is coming from really far away." Kim Ara played the recording through the bridge speakers. Static filled the air, then a voice spoke in broken galactic common language. The voice sounded scared and desperate. "Any ships? Please help, our world is dying and they came with many ships that we cannot fight. Please someone help us." The signal cut to static again. Kim Ara worked on her controls and managed to clean up more of the message. This time they could hear more clearly. "This is Elder Thalos of the Valerian people. Our star system is under attack by the Skarathi fleet. We are a peaceful people with no weapons. They demand we surrender or they will destroy our planet. We have 47 hours before they begin bombing our world. Any species with military ships, please help us. Our children hide in the deep places and cry. Please help." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew about the Valerians. They were fish-like people who lived in the oceans of their world. They never fought anyone and spent their time making art and studying science. Everyone also knew about the Skarathi. They were bug-like creatures who conquered other worlds and made slaves of the people they captured. Dr. Park Mira came onto the bridge. She was the chief scientist on the Soul's Pride and knew more about alien species than anyone else in the fleet. "Admiral, I heard the signal from my lab. The Valerians are good people. They saved a human colony ship about 50 years ago when a plague broke out. They asked for nothing in return." Han Wu nodded. He remembered reading about that in his history classes. The Valerians had shared their medical knowledge freely and helped cure the sick humans. Many families were alive today because of their help. "How far away are they?" Han Wu asked Kim Ara. "About 2 days' travel at maximum speed, sir." "But Admiral, the Skarathi have hundreds of ships. Intelligence reports say they brought their entire battle fleet." Captain Li Jun walked onto the bridge. He commanded the heavy cruiser Busan Thunder and was Han Wu's most trusted officer. "Sir, my ship just picked up the same signal. Are we really thinking about this?" Han Wu looked at the star charts on the main screen. The Valerian system was marked with a red warning symbol. Hostile forces present, no safe passage guaranteed. Most galactic species would ignore this call. The Skarathi were too strong and the distance was too far. It would be a suicide mission. "Sir," Dr. Park Mira said quietly, "I've been monitoring galactic communications. No one else is responding to their call. The Galactic Council has marked it as a local conflict and advised all ships to stay away." "Of course they did," Li Jun said with anger in his voice. "The Council only cares when the big trading worlds are threatened. A peaceful species gets attacked and suddenly it's not their problem." Han Wu thought about his orders. The human defense fleet was supposed to protect human space and patrol the borders. Going to help the Valerians would mean leaving their assigned area and possibly getting into a fight they couldn't win. It would be against regulations and could get him court-martialed. But Han Wu also thought about why humans had joined the galactic community in the first place. Earth was called a death world by most aliens because it was so dangerous. Storms, earthquakes, dangerous animals, diseases, and extreme weather made life hard. Most alien species came from safer planets, where life was easier. They thought humans were crazy for living on such a dangerous world. What they didn't understand was that growing up on Earth made humans different. When everything around you could kill you, you learned to fight back. You learned to help others because working together was the only way to survive. You learned that sometimes you had to risk everything to do what was right. Kimara, open a channel to all ships in the fleet, Han Wu ordered. Channel open, sir. This is Admiral Han Wu to all ships. By now you've all heard the Valerian distress call. I'm going to be straight with you. The Skarathi have between 600 and 800 ships, we have 12. They're 2 days away at maximum speed, and we don't know if our ships can even handle that kind of travel without breaking down. Han Wu paused and looked around the bridge. Every officer was watching him carefully. The safe thing to do is ignore this call and continue our patrol. That's what the regulations say we should do. That's what every other species in the galaxy is doing right now. But I've been thinking about what makes us human. We don't do things because they're safe. We do them because they're right. The communication channel filled with voices as ship captains responded. Every single captain in the small fleet volunteered to go. Some of them said they remembered the Valerian rescue of the colony ship. Others said they were tired of bullies like the Skarathi picking on peaceful people. All of them said they were ready to fight. All right then, Han Wu said. Dr. Park, I want you to find everything you can about Skarathi ships and weapons. Li Jun, start working on battle plans. Kim Ara, send a message back to the Valerians. Tell them help is coming. What should I tell them about our numbers, sir? Kim Ara asked. Han Wu smiled. Tell them 12 human ships are on the way. If they know anything about humans, that should give them hope. Dr. Park Mira pulled up information about the Skarathi on her tablet. Admiral, their ships are powerful, but they rely on standard galactic technology. Our ships might be tougher than they expect. Earth-built ships are designed to handle extreme conditions. Good. What about their tactics? They usually overwhelm enemies with superior numbers. They're not used to fighting opponents who fight back aggressively. Most species they attack either surrender quickly or try to run away. Li Jun laughed. They've never fought humans before. We're too stupid to know when we're beaten. The Soul's Pride began changing course toward the Valerian system. The other 11 ships in the fleet followed. Han Wu knew this was probably going to be the last mission for all of them. 12 ships against hundreds was not good odds by any reasonable measure. But Han Wu also knew something that the Skarathi didn't. Humans weren't reasonable. They were from a world that tried to kill them every day, and they had learned to fight back. They had learned that impossible just meant you had to work harder and be smarter. They had learned that sometimes the right thing to do was also the most dangerous thing to do. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed and headed toward what most of the galaxy would call certain death. For the humans aboard those ships, it was just Tuesday. The news traveled fast through human space. Within 3 hours of Admiral Han Wu's decision, every human military base and ship in the sector knew about the Valerian crisis. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Fleet Admiral Cho Hyun was in her office on Earth when she got the message. She had been reading reports about trade negotiations when her aide rushed in with the emergency communication. After listening to Han Wu's transmission, she stood up and walked to her window overlooking the Seoul Defense Complex. Get me a direct line to all sector commanders, she ordered. Emergency priority. Within minutes, she was talking to military leaders across human space. The conversation was short and to the point. Cho Hyun explained the situation and asked for volunteers. Every single commander offered their ships. Ma'am, said Admiral Kim from the Centauri sector, I can have 40 ships ready to jump in 2 hours. My crews are already loading supplies. The Outer Rim Defense Group is moving now, reported Commander Yoon from the frontier stations. 60 ships, including my new experimental frigates. Admiral Cho Hyun smiled. This was exactly what she expected from human crews. When someone needed help, humans dropped everything and ran toward the danger. I'm coming with you, she announced. Ready my flagship. We're going to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten innocent people. Back on the Soul's Pride, Admiral Han Wu watched in amazement as his small fleet grew larger every hour. Ships appeared out of hyperspace in groups of 5 or 10. Heavy battlecruisers, fast attack ships, assault carriers, and support vessels. Each captain who arrived asked the same question. Where do you want us, sir? Captain Li Jun was working in the tactical center when the first wave of reinforcements arrived. His job was to figure out how to use all these ships in battle against the Skarathi. The problem was that human ships weren't designed to fight the same way as other galactic navies. Most alien species fought space battles at long range with careful formations and planned movements. They calculated odds and made logical decisions about when to attack and when to retreat. Human ships were built differently because humans thought about war differently. "Look at this," Lee Jun said to his tactical officer. "The Busan Thunder has armor that's 3 times thicker than standard galactic designs. Our engines can handle overload conditions that would destroy most alien ships. Our weapons can fire faster because we don't mind if they overheat." "Why did we build ships so differently?" the officer asked. "Because we're from Earth," Lee Jun explained. "Everything on our planet is trying to kill us all the time. Storms that could level cities, earthquakes that split mountains, animals that hunt in packs. We built our ships the same way we built everything else on Earth. Tough enough to survive anything." Dr. Park Mira was studying Skarathi battle records in her lab when Commander Yundai arrived on the Soul's Pride. Yundai led the Ghost Battalion, the most elite special forces unit in human space. He was a small man with quiet eyes, but everyone knew he was extremely dangerous. "Doctor, I need to know everything about Skarathi's ships," he said, "especially the inside layout." "Planning boarding actions?" Park Mira asked. "Maybe. Humans are good at fighting in small spaces. We grew up in caves and tunnels and tight places. If we can get inside their ships, we might have an advantage." Park Mira pulled up detailed scans of captured Skarathi vessels. Their ships are designed for their insect-like bodies, narrow corridors, low ceilings, lots of small chambers. They're built for creatures that work together like a hive mind. "Perfect," Yundai said with a cold smile. "They won't expect individual fighters who can think for themselves." Engineer Yang Sol was the busiest person in the growing fleet. Every ship that arrived needed modifications for the coming battle. The problem was that they would be fighting far from any repair stations or supply depots. The ships had to be ready for anything. "We need to push the engines past their normal limits," Yang Sol explained to her engineering teams over the communication system. "The Valerians have 47 hours. We need to cover 2 days of travel in less than 36 hours. "What about engine safety?" asked one of her engineers. "Safety is for species that didn't evolve on Deathworlds," Yang Sol replied. "Our engines are built to handle Earth's electromagnetic storms and solar radiation. They can take more punishment than anything else in the galaxy." Yang Sol began working on modifications that would make most alien engineers run away screaming. She rerouted power from life support systems to engines. She disabled safety protocols that prevented overheating. She pushed reactor output to levels that were marked as extremely dangerous. "Ma'am," her assistant said nervously, "these modifications could cause explosive engine failure." "Could cause failure or will cause failure?" Yang Sol asked. "Could cause failure, ma'am." "Then we do it. Humans have been taking calculated risks since we first decided to leave the caves. This is just one more risk." The fleet kept growing. By the 18-hour mark, there were over 200 human ships gathered in space. It was the largest human military force assembled since the Centauri Wars 30 years ago. Ships that had been guarding trade routes, protecting colonies, and patrolling borders all came together for one mission. Admiral Cho Hyun arrived with her flagship and took overall command of the operation. Her ship, the Terra's Fury, was the most powerful vessel in human space. It had weapons that could crack asteroids and armor that had never been penetrated in battle. "Status report," she ordered as soon as she came aboard the Soul's Pride. 214 ships ready for combat, Han Wu reported. "All crews have volunteered for the mission. Engineers report all ships are modified for maximum speed and combat effectiveness." "What about intelligence on the enemy?" Dr. Park Mira stepped forward. "The Skarathi have approximately 800 ships surrounding the Valerian homeworld. They're using standard siege tactics, cutting off all escape routes and preparing for planetary bombardment." 800 against 200. Cho Hyun used. "Those are almost fair odds." Captain Lee Jun had finished his tactical analysis. "Ma'am, I recommend we don't fight a traditional space battle. The Skarathi will expect us to engage at long range with careful formations. Instead, I suggest we jump directly into their formation and fight at close range." "That's insane," said one of the other captains. We'll be surrounded immediately. Exactly, Li Jun replied. They won't be able to use their superior numbers effectively if we're fighting inside their formation. Their own ships will be in the way of their weapons. Commander Yoon Dae added his thoughts. My special forces teams are ready for boarding actions. If we can capture some of their command ships, we can disrupt their coordination. Admiral Cho Hyun listened to all the plans and proposals. What she heard was typically human. Instead of trying to fight a safe defensive battle, her officers wanted to charge straight into the enemy fleet and fight at close range, where their advantages would matter most. All right, she decided. We do this the human way. Fast, aggressive, and completely unexpected. The Skorathi think they're fighting another weak galactic species. They're about to learn what Deathworlders can do when we're angry. The modified engines began powering up across the fleet. Yang Sol's dangerous modifications would let them reach the Valerian system hours ahead of schedule. The weapons were charged and ready. The crews were prepared for what might be their last battle. As the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Admiral Cho Hyun sent one final message to Earth. This is Fleet Admiral Cho Hyun. The human defense fleet is proceeding to assist the Valerian people against Skorathi aggression. We go not because it is safe or easy, but because it is right. If we do not return, know that we died doing what humans do best, protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The 214 ships of the human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, racing toward a battle that would change how the galaxy saw the species from the dangerous world called Earth. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace in the middle of the Skorathi formation, like a thunderbolt from hell. 214 ships appeared in flashes of light directly among the enemy vessels. The Skorathi had been expecting any relief force to arrive at the edge of the system and fight a traditional long-range battle. Instead, they found human warships materializing between their own ships. High Admiral Krex commanded the Skorathi fleet from his massive command ship. He was a veteran of 50 conquest campaigns and had never seen anything like this. His tactical display showed red dots appearing everywhere throughout his carefully organized formation. What are they doing? He clicked in the Skorathi language. No species fights like this. His tactical officer was just as confused. Sir, they jumped directly into our formation. They're surrounded on all sides. It should be easy to destroy them. But as the first shots were fired, High Admiral Krex realized these were not ordinary opponents. The human ships didn't try to escape or form defensive positions. Instead, they charged forward and began attacking everything in range. Admiral Cho Hyun stood on the bridge of the Terra's Fury and smiled as chaos erupted around her fleet. All ships weapons free. Show them why Earth is called a death world. The battle began with the humans doing exactly what Captain Li Jun had planned. Instead of fighting at long range where the Skorathi could use their superior numbers, the human ships closed to point-blank range and began what they called knife fighting. Captain Li Jun's ship, the Busan Thunder, led the charge toward the largest group of enemy vessels. His heavy cruiser was built to survive Earth's brutal storms and electromagnetic interference. The Skorathi weapons that could have destroyed a standard galactic ship barely scratched its thick armor. Target the big one, Li Jun ordered, pointing at a Skorathi battleship 3 times the size of his cruiser. Ram speed. Sir, that ship has enough firepower to destroy a small moon, his weapons officer warned. Good thing we're not a small moon, Li Jun replied. All power to forward shields and engines. The Busan Thunder accelerated directly toward the enemy battleship. The Skorathi crew fired everything they had at the approaching human ship. Plasma bolts and energy beams hammered the cruiser's shields and armor. Any other species would have been destroyed instantly. But the Busan Thunder kept coming. Its armor glowed red-hot from the energy impacts but held together. Li Jun's ship crashed into the Skorathi battleship's side at full speed. The impact sent shockwaves through both vessels and left a massive hole in the enemy ship's hull. Boarding. Parties away, Li Jun announced calmly as his ship pulled back from the collision. Commander Yoon Dae and his Ghost Battalion had been waiting for this moment. As soon as the ships collided, his Special Forces troops used the impact hole to board the enemy vessel. They wore full combat armor designed for Earth's most dangerous environments. The Skarathi ship's atmosphere was poisonous to humans, but the armor didn't care. The inside of the Skarathi ship was a maze of narrow corridors and small chambers designed for insect-like creatures. The Skarathi warriors were strong and had natural armor, but they had never fought opponents like humans. Sergeant Major Kang Bin led the first boarding team through the breach. His squad moved through the alien corridors like wolves hunting in a pack. Each human soldier could think and act independently while working together as a team. The Skarathi, used to hive mind coordination, couldn't adapt to the humans' unpredictable tactics. "Left corridor clear," reported one soldier over the radio. "Right corridor has 6 hostiles," reported another. "Engaging now." Kang Bin's team used weapons designed for close quarters combat in Earth's most dangerous places. Explosive rounds that could punch through asteroid rock tore through Skarathi armor. Electromagnetic pulse grenades disrupted their communications. Flashbang devices that could disorient creatures evolved in Earth's bright sunlight completely blinded the insect warriors. On the bridge of the Terra's Fury, Dr. Park Mira was analyzing the battle data and making a discovery that would change everything. "Admiral, I'm seeing something interesting in the Skarathi communication patterns," she reported to Cho Hyun. "What kind of interesting?" "They're using a hive mind network to coordinate their ships. All their tactical decisions go through central command nodes. If we can disrupt those communications, their entire formation will become confused." Admiral Cho Hyun understood immediately. "Can you jam their frequency?" "I think so. But I need to get closer to their command ships to analyze the signal properly." "Consider it done. Han Wu, take your ships toward their command group. Park Mira needs data on their communications." Admiral Han Wu's squadron pushed deeper into the Skarathi formation. The Soul's Pride and 5 other ships fought their way through waves of enemy vessels. The human ships took enormous damage but kept fighting. Their crews had grown up on a world where everything could kill them, so a little thing like being outnumbered and surrounded didn't scare them. Meanwhile, on the planet below, Elder Thalos and his people watched the battle from their underwater cities. The Valerians were peaceful creatures who had never seen such violent combat. They were amazed and terrified by what they witnessed. "The humans fight like the great storms of the deep ocean," Elder Thalos observed. "Chaotic and destructive, but also protective." Young Valerians pressed against the viewing domes to watch the space battle. They had never seen anyone fight to protect them before. Most galactic species saw the Valerians as weak and unimportant. But the humans had come from across the galaxy to help them. "Why do they fight so hard for us?" asked a young Valerian named Coral. "We barely know each other." Elder Thalos had been alive for over 300 years and had studied many species, because they understand something that others do not. In a universe full of danger, sometimes the only safety comes from protecting each other. Back in space, the battle was reaching a critical point. The human fleet had been fighting for 6 hours and was taking heavy losses. 17 ships had been destroyed, and many others were badly damaged. But they had also destroyed over 40 Skarathi vessels and captured 5 more through boarding actions. Engineer Yang Sol was working desperately to keep the fleet's engines running. Her dangerous modifications were pushing the ships beyond their normal limits. Several vessels had already suffered engine failures and were running on backup power. "Ma'am, the reactor on the Incheon Defender is reaching critical temperature," reported one of her assistants. "Can they fight?" "For maybe another hour before the reactor shuts down. Then they have another hour to fight." Yang Sol out. High Admiral Krex was becoming increasingly frustrated. His fleet should have destroyed the human ships hours ago. Instead, the humans kept fighting with a ferocity he had never encountered. They seemed to ignore damage that would force other species to retreat. "Sir, we've lost contact with 5 command ships," his communications officer reported. "The human boarding parties have captured them." "How is that possible?" "Those ships had full security details." "The humans fight differently, sir. They don't follow standard galactic combat doctrine. Our warriors can't predict their tactics." Krex watched his tactical display and realized something disturbing. Despite having 4 times as many ships, his fleet was not winning this battle. The humans were fighting so aggressively that his careful formations were breaking apart. Ships were colliding with each other, trying to avoid human ramming attacks. Communication lines were being disrupted by some kind of jamming signal. Dr. Park Mira had finally gotten the data she needed. "Admiral, I've cracked their communication system. I can jam their hive mind network." "Do it," Cho Hyun ordered. Park Mira activated her jamming device. Across the Skarathi fleet, ship commanders suddenly found themselves unable to receive orders from their central command. For a species that relied on hive mind coordination, this was devastating. Skarathi ships began flying in random directions as individual captains tried to make decisions without guidance. Some ships fired on their own allies by mistake. Others flew directly into asteroid fields trying to escape the human attack. Commander Yoon-dae's voice came over the radio from inside the captured Skarathi command ship. "Admiral, we've taken the bridge. Their computers have the locations of all enemy ships. Should we use their weapons against them?" "Absolutely," Cho Hyun replied. "Turn their own guns on them." The tide of battle was finally turning. The human fleet, though battered and reduced to less than 200 ships, was winning through sheer determination and tactics that no other species would attempt. High Admiral Krex stared at his tactical display in disbelief. These creatures from the Death World had done the impossible. They had turned a hopeless battle into a victory through methods that violated every principle of civilized warfare. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "perhaps we should consider withdrawal." For the first time in his military career, High Admiral Krex was thinking about retreat. The battle had been raging for 14 hours when Captain Lee Jun made a decision that would become legendary throughout the galaxy. His ship, the Busan Thunder, had taken severe damage from the earlier ramming attack. The engines were failing, life support was barely working, and half his weapons were offline. "Sir, we need to withdraw for repairs," his engineering officer reported. "The ship won't survive another major engagement." Lee Jun looked at his tactical display. 3 Skarathi dreadnoughts were moving toward a group of damaged human ships that couldn't defend themselves. If those enemy vessels reached the wounded human fleet, dozens of ships and thousands of crew members would die. "Plot an intercept course for those dreadnoughts," Lee Jun ordered. "Sir, we can't fight 3 dreadnoughts in our condition." "We're not going to fight them," Lee Jun said calmly. "We're going to stop them." The bridge crew understood immediately what their captain was planning. The Busan Thunder began accelerating toward the 3 enemy dreadnoughts. This wasn't an attack run or a tactical maneuver. This was a suicide charge designed to buy time. For the other human ships, "All hands, this is the captain," Lee Jun announced over the ship's communication system. "Prepare for emergency evacuation. We're going to ram those dreadnoughts and use our ship as a missile. It's been an honor serving with you." The crew of the Busan Thunder worked with calm efficiency to prepare for what they all knew was a one-way trip. They had grown up on Earth where death was always close and life was something you fought for every single day. This was just another day on the job. Engineer Yang Sol watched the attack from her position aboard the Soul's Pride. As the Busan Thunder accelerated toward the enemy ships, she worked frantically to calculate the exact moment when Lee Jun's crew would need to abandon ship. "Timing is everything," she muttered to herself as she worked. "Too early and the ship won't hit the target. Too late and the crew won't survive." The Skarathi dreadnoughts saw the approaching human cruiser and began firing everything they had. Plasma bolts and energy beams turned space into a light show of destruction. The Busan Thunder's armor glowed white-hot as it absorbed the punishment, but the ship kept coming. At the last possible second, Lee Jun gave the evacuation order. "All hands abandon ship, emergency pods away." The crew launched in armored escape pods just as their ship crashed into the first dreadnought at near light speed. The impact was visible from the planet below as a new star briefly appeared in the sky. The explosion destroyed the first dreadnought completely and severely damaged the other 2. Dr. Park Mira had been working on her communication jamming for hours when she made another breakthrough. By studying the captured Skarathi computers, she discovered something that changed everything. "Admiral, I've found a critical weakness in their battle network," she reported to Cho Hyun. "Their hive mind communications create a feedback loop when disrupted. If I can send the right signal, it will cause system-wide confusion. How confused? Confused enough that they might start firing on their own ships, Park Mira explained. Their individual ship captains have never had to make independent decisions. Without central coordination, they don't know who is friend or enemy. Admiral Cho Hyun smiled grimly. Do it. Park Mira activated her new jamming frequency. Across the Skarathi fleet, ship computers began receiving conflicting orders. Some ships were told to attack north while others were told to attack south. Communication channels filled with contradictory commands and confused reports. The result was exactly what Park Mira had predicted. Skarathi ships began firing on each other as their captains tried to follow impossible orders. A group of destroyers attacked their own supply ships after receiving false targeting data. Two battleships collided while trying to occupy the same position simultaneously. Commander Yoon Dae was leading another boarding action when the communication chaos began. His Ghost Battalion had just captured their third Skarathi vessel when the enemy crew suddenly stopped resisting and began fighting among themselves. "What's happening over there?" asked Sergeant Major Kang Bin as they watched Skarathi warriors attacking each other in the corridors. "Their command structure is breaking down," Yoon Dae observed. "Without central control, they're reverting to individual survival instincts." The Ghost Battalion took advantage of the chaos to capture critical areas of the ship. The engine room, bridge, and weapons control all fell to human forces within minutes. Soon they had another Skarathi vessel under their control. "Sir, should we use this ship's weapons against the enemy?" asked one of the boarding team leaders. "Absolutely," Yoon Dae replied. "Turn every gun we capture against them." The captured Skarathi ships began firing on their former allies. The enemy fleet was now facing attack from three directions: the remaining human ships, their own confused vessels, and the captured ships under human control. High Admiral Krex watched his fleet disintegrate around him. Ships were colliding, firing on allies and fleeing in random directions. His carefully organized siege was turning into complete chaos. "Sir, we need to restore communication immediately," his tactical officer reported. "Half our ships are lost, and the other half don't know what they're supposed to be doing." "How did they do this by?" Krex demanded. "How did 200 ships defeat 800? His science officer had been studying the human tactics throughout the battle. "Sir, I believe they're using psychological warfare based on their evolution. On a death world, they fight with a level of aggression and unpredictability that our doctrine cannot counter." "Explain." "Their planet is extremely dangerous. They evolved to fight for survival against impossible odds every day. What we see as reckless behavior, they see as normal tactics. They literally don't understand the concept of fighting a safe battle." Krex stared at the tactical display showing his fleet in complete disarray. These Deathworld creatures had turned everything he knew about space warfare upside down. They charged when they should have retreated, fought at close range when they should have maintained distance, and used their own ships as weapons when they should have preserved them. Engineer Yang Sol was monitoring the fleet's condition when she noticed something remarkable. Despite the heavy fighting and dangerous modifications, most of the human ships were still operational. "How are we still fighting?" her assistant asked. "These ships should have fallen apart hours ago." "Earth engineering," Yang Sol replied with pride. "We build everything to survive hurricanes, earthquakes, and solar storms. A little space battle isn't going to stop us." The truth was that human ships were vastly over-engineered compared to standard galactic designs. When most alien species built spacecraft, they calculated exactly how much stress the ship would need to handle and then built it to those specifications. Humans calculated the worst possible conditions their ships might face, and then built them 3 times stronger than necessary. Admiral Cho Hyun was coordinating the final phase of the battle when she received an unexpected communication. It was from High Admiral Krex himself. "Human Commander, I request immediate ceasefire negotiations," the Skarathi leader transmitted. "This is Fleet Admiral Cho Hyun of the Human Defense Fleet. State your terms." "We will withdraw from Valerian space immediately in exchange for cessation of hostilities," Krex replied. Cho Hyun looked around her bridge. Her officers were exhausted but determined. They had been fighting impossible odds for 15 hours and winning through sheer human stubbornness. "Not good enough," she responded. You will withdraw all Skarathi forces from this sector and pay reparations to the Valerian people for the damage you've caused. That is unacceptable. We still outnumber your remaining ships. Do you? Cho Hyun asked. Look around, Admiral. How many of your ships are still under your control? How many are fighting each other? How many are running away? There was a long pause before Krex responded. When he did, his voice sounded defeated. What are you people? No species fights like this. You should have been destroyed hours ago. Admiral Cho Hyun's reply would be quoted in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come. We're from Earth, Admiral. Everything there tries to kill us on a daily basis. You're just Tuesday. High Admiral Krex's surrender came 18 hours after the battle began. The Skarathi fleet, once a mighty force of 800 ships, had been reduced to fewer than 300 functional vessels. Many of those were fleeing the system as fast as their engines could carry them. The rest were either captured, destroyed, or completely lost in the communication chaos. The human fleet had lost 28 ships in the battle, but they had achieved something that military historians would call impossible for the next 3 centuries. A force 1/4 the size of their enemy had not only won a decisive victory, but had done it while protecting a peaceful species and their homeworld. Elder Thalos led the first group of Valerians to the surface as human rescue ships began landing in the shallow seas around their cities. The sight that greeted them was unlike anything the peaceful aquatic people had ever seen. Human marines waded through the water in full combat armor, but instead of weapons, they carried medical supplies and emergency equipment. These were the same soldiers who had been fighting a desperate space battle just hours before, now working to help injured Valerians and repair damaged settlements. Why do they help us? Asked a young Valerian as she watched human engineers repairing a water purification system. Elder Thalos had been watching the humans work for several hours. Because that is what they do. They fight to protect others, then they stay to help them heal. Dr. Park Mira was among the first scientists to establish contact with the Valerian research community. She found their underwater laboratories fascinating and was amazed by their advanced understanding of biological systems. Your medical knowledge is incredible, she told a group of Valerian scientists. You could help us understand diseases that have puzzled humans for centuries. The Valerian researcher named Deep Current replied, and your survival technologies could help us explore deeper parts of our oceans that we have never seen. Perhaps we can learn from each other. This conversation would lead to one of the most successful interspecies partnerships in galactic history. Human engineering and Valerian biology would combine to create medical advances that saved millions of lives across dozens of worlds. Captain Lee Jun was recovering in the medical bay of the Soul's Pride when Admiral Cho Hyun came to visit him. His ramming attack had saved dozens of ships and hundreds of lives, but it had also left him with serious injuries when his escape pod was damaged during the evacuation. How are you feeling, Captain? Cho Hyun asked. Like I got hit by a dreadnought, Lee Jun replied with a weak smile, but alive, which is more than I expected. Your attack broke their formation at the critical moment. Without that sacrifice, we might have lost the battle. Lee Jun shook his head. It wasn't a sacrifice, Admiral. It was just good tactics. Sometimes the best weapon you have is your own ship. This attitude was typical of human military thinking, and completely baffling to other galactic species. Most alien commanders would see losing a ship as a failure, even in victory. Humans saw it as just another tool to be used when necessary. Commander Yoon Dae and his Ghost Battalion had captured 7 Skarathi vessels during the battle. More importantly, they had captured the complete battle plans and communication codes for the entire Skarathi military. This intelligence will prevent future attacks on dozens of worlds, Yoon Dae reported to Admiral Cho Hyun. We now know their fleet positions, supply routes, and strategic objectives for the next 5 years. What about their reaction to our tactics? They're terrified, ma'am. Their military doctrine has no counter for Deathworld fighting techniques. They're already pulling back from 3 other systems where they were planning attacks. Engineer Yang Sol was busy repairing the fleet when she made an interesting discovery. The extreme modifications she had made to push the human ships beyond their limits had actually improved their performance in several unexpected ways. "Admiral, I think we've accidentally invented new engine technology," she reported to Cho Hyun. "The modifications we made for this battle could revolutionize space travel." "How so?" "By removing the safety restrictions and pushing the reactors to their absolute limits, we've found ways to generate 20% more power from the same fuel. Most species would never try this because it's too dangerous, but our ships are tough enough to handle the stress." This was another example of how human engineering differed from galactic standards. Other species built ships to be safe and reliable. Humans built ships to survive anything and then pushed them to their absolute limits. The news of the battle spread across the galaxy within days. The story seemed impossible to most alien species. How could 200 ships defeat 800? How could any fleet suffer such heavy losses and still win decisively? The Galactic Council called an emergency session to discuss the implications. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to try to understand what had happened at the Valerian homeworld. "The humans fought with complete disregard for their own safety," reported the Altarian ambassador. "They used tactics that should have resulted in total annihilation. Their ships are built to specifications that exceed galactic safety standards by enormous margins," added the Centaurian military analyst. "They can survive damage that would destroy any other vessel." "But why did they go at all?" asked the Zephyrian delegate. "The Valerians offered nothing of strategic value. There was no logical reason to risk so much for so little gain." This question revealed the fundamental difference between humans and most other galactic species. Other races made decisions based on logical cost-benefit analysis. Humans made decisions based on what they felt was right, regardless of the personal cost. Admiral Cho Hyun was invited to address the Galactic Council about the battle. Her speech would become one of the most famous diplomatic moments in galactic history. "You ask why we risked everything to save the Valerians," she began. "You calculate odds and analyze benefits and conclude that our actions were illogical. But you're missing something important." She paused and looked around the assembly hall, filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. "Earth is a dangerous place. Storms that could level your cities, earthquakes that split continents, predators that hunt in organized packs, diseases that spread faster than wildfire. On our world, the only way to survive is to help each other. When someone is in trouble, you don't calculate the odds. You don't analyze the benefits. You help, because someday you might be the one who needs help." The hall was completely silent as she continued. "The Valarians called for help, so we came. It's that simple. We didn't come because we expected a reward or because it was strategically advantageous. We came because it was the right thing to do." The impact of her words was immediate. Within weeks, 3 other aggressive species had opened peace negotiations with human space. The reputation of humans as unpredictable warriors who would fight impossible battles for moral reasons spread throughout the galaxy. 6 months after the battle, Elder Thalos hosted a ceremony on the Valerian homeworld to honor the human fleet. A massive crystal monument was built in the deepest ocean trench, where young Valerians would learn about the day the Sky Warriors came to save their world. Admiral Han Wu attended the ceremony along with the surviving captains from the original 12-ship patrol fleet. As they descended to the monument in submersible vehicles, Han Wu reflected on how much had changed. "Do you think we did the right thing?" asked Captain Li Jun, who had recovered from his injuries. "Look around," Han Wu replied, gesturing at the peaceful Valerian cities they were passing. "Millions of people are alive because we answered their call. How could that be wrong?" The monument itself was a work of art that took Han Wu's breath away. Crystalline structures rose from the ocean floor like frozen lightning, each one inscribed with the names of the human ships that had fought in the battle. At the center was a sculpture showing human and Valerian figures working together. "What does the inscription say?" Han Wu asked Elder Thalos. The ancient Valerian smiled as he translated. "It says, 'Here lies the proof that in a universe full of darkness there are still those who will dive into the depths to bring light to others.'" The ceremony concluded with something unprecedented in galactic history. Every species in the local sector sent representatives to honor the human sacrifice. Even former enemies attended to pay their respects. As the human fleet prepared to leave Valerian space, Elder Thalos gave Admiral Cho Hyun a gift that would be treasured for generations. It was a small piece of living coral that could survive in any environment, including the vacuum of space. This represents the bond between our peoples, Thalos explained. It will grow and flourish anywhere, just like the friendship between humans and Valerians. The fleet departed with an escort of honor guards from 17 different species. As they jumped to hyperspace, Admiral Cho Hyun reflected on the legacy they had created. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. They were still called Deathworlders, but now the term carried respect instead of fear. They were the species that would answer any call for help, fight any odds, and sacrifice anything to protect the innocent. In the years that followed, the phrase Deathworlder response entered galactic military terminology. It meant a force that would attack when retreat was logical, fight when surrender was reasonable,